Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Fantasy Football Uptick. I'm Jeremiah Blue, and today we're going to be talking about the running back position. Our last episode, we discussed the top 10 running backs in fantasy football, and then this week we're going to be talking about 11 through 20. So, starting it off is Jordan Howard. Basically, let's talk about what we know about Jordan Howard. A lot of people right now are saying that with the new coaching regime, that Jordan Howard's going to have a down year based on the fact that he doesn't really fit Matt Nagy's system. Well, in a way, that's true because he really doesn't fit his system. He hasn't done a lot of catching the ball out of the backfield. But I think that Matt Nagy is going to move his system more towards the strengths of his offense. Jordan Howard is the best player on this team. And so Matt Nagy is going to use Jordan Howard to his strengths. He's a professional football coach. That's what he's going to do. And he's an offensive mind. The strength of this offense last year was basically their interior running ability. So their ability to run the ball inside. And that's been the strength for the last couple of years. So they added a lot of weapons this year with Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, and Tariq Cohen going into his second year. So there's a lot of passing options here. Now, just because I say Jordan Howard's going to have a good year doesn't mean that I don't think Tariq Cohen's going to have a good year. And a lot of people, that's basically their idea for Jordan Howard having a bad year is because Tariq Cohen's going to have a good one. The truth is, this is one of the worst offenses in the league last year. And with the addition of Matt Nagy, I expect them to have a better season this season. So I think there's going to be more touchdown opportunities. And I do believe Jordan Howard's still going to be the touchdown guy. And or the goal line back. He's got 9 touchdowns last year. I think this team's going to score more points. That's going to result in Jordan Howard getting to the double figures of touchdowns. And when you can get double figures in touchdowns, then we're talking about you're in this second tier of running backs in the 11 through 20 range. You're going to finish there. And I feel like he's a pretty safe option to finish there with the upside of him being able to catch the ball a little bit more out of the backfield than he has in recent years. Last year he finished with over 1,100 yards. I believe he'll get roughly over 1,100 yards this season. I think he'll be more efficient. He might have a higher yards per carry, more touchdowns, and he's probably going to get more involved in the passing game this year. So me personally, I do like Jordan Howard. I know a lot of people are very concerned about the idea that he's going to be sharing the backfield, so there's going to be a running back by committee situation going on. But if you look around the league, that's kind of what's going on with all the running backs in this tier. You look at Joe Mixon, he's sharing with Giovanni Bernard. Christian McCaffrey sharing with C.J. Anderson. Devontae Freeman, he's got Telvin Coleman, who I think is probably the most, of all the people sharing the field, he's probably the most talented of all the guys on this list. You got Jay Ajayi, he's in that Eagles offense where they basically share the ball and they do that running back by committee thing. I've got Jay Ajayi ranked higher than most people, strictly because I think that his talent is going to show out. And last year he came over, and I think people think that they're going to use him in the same way. That's not going to be the case. Jay Ajayi now with a full training camp and understanding the playbook, he's going to be the lead back here. And I honestly think I might be too low on him, but I do feel very comfortable with the guys ahead of him. Derrick Henry, I like the new system he's in, but again, he's sharing the ball with Dion Lewis. And Alex Collins, well, I just don't think he's the most talented running back on his own team. I think Kenneth Dixon is, and if Kenneth Dixon is able to get involved in the offense, there's going to be a split there, and Alex Collins hasn't really been trusted with the passing game, which I talked about when I went over the Ravens team. Let's talk about Joe Mixon, the number 2 guy on my list. Now, the reason he's number 2 on my list has everything to do with his upside and more than it has to do with what I actually think he'll be able to do this year. Now, I do think he's going to be very good this year, but his upside is in the same range as the Todd Gurley's, as the Le'Veon Bells, as the Zekes, and that's why you draft a guy at this point. Because in reality, is he going to be putting up the same numbers as Christian McCaffrey, Devontae Freeman? Probably. He's going to be right in that range. His upside is insane because I know Giovanni Bernard's there, but this is a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield, who's built the same way those guys are to handle the rock 20, 25 times a game. He's got all the talent in the world. And last year, the reason he was really, really bad had everything to do with his offensive line and a lot less to do with him as an actual running back. Not to mention, early in the year, they didn't even let him become the starter. They were still rolling out Jeremy Hill for whatever reason, right? So this year, they ended up going out, trading with Buffalo, got a left tackle, Cordy Glenn, and then their very first pick of the draft was a center, Billy Price. So now this year, I expect that offensive line to be very good, so like above average. And so Joe Mixon is maybe almost a buy low because a lot of people are going to look at last year's numbers and just go, no, thank you. But I'm telling you, this guy is super talented. So it's just going to be one of those. It's a risky pick, obviously, because of what he was able to do last year. But with the changing of what they've done there in Cincinnati, I don't believe it's that big of a risk. I do believe he can't have a worse year than last year. Last year he almost put up 1,000 yards, and I believe he's going to be the goal line guy on that offense. So outside of an injury, I really expect him to do just better across the board than he did last season. Number 3 on my list is going to be Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey, I just love to watch. He's a matchup nightmare. His ability to come out of the backfield and create mismatches with linebackers and safeties is just, it's unparalleled to basically anybody else in the league. I did not expect him to be that good as a rookie coming out of college. I expect him to only get better at that. I believe that him and Cam are going to just get more on the same page. I believe last year he had 80 receptions. This year I believe he's going to get it upwards of in the 100 range. So I think he could touch 100 receptions for a running back. That's huge. Even in non-PPR, I think yardage total is going to go way up because last year he struggled running the ball. I don't think he's going to struggle as bad running the ball. I think he'll improve in that area, and I think he's going to improve in the receiving area. Now, I do believe that he'll stay on the field a lot more this year than he did last year. I think a little bit of the reason Jonathan Stewart stayed on the field last year was a little bit of that loyalty to the veterans on the team that a lot of teams have. Now you get C.J. Anderson, who's coming over as free agent. The guy they're being loyal to at this point is going to be Christian McCaffrey. And honestly, when Christian McCaffrey's on the field, that puts more strain on the defense than a guy like C.J. Anderson. Yeah, he's better maybe going up the middle and being able to get those hard yards, but you got Cam there to do those kind of things. And I'm not saying that they're not going to use him in that way. C.J. Anderson's a fine running back as far as like a team goes, but I think they're going to have a real hard time pulling Christian McCaffrey off the field because of the mismatches he puts on the defense and the kind of strain he puts on them. So I do believe he gets upward in that, like I said, 100 receptions, and then his running game is going to be improved. Now, he might not lead the team in rushing. That's either going to be Cam or C.J. Anderson probably, but there is a potential that he could lead the team in rushing. The same thing as I was talking about with Joe Mixon as far as upside goes. This is a guy that it definitely has that upside because if he can lead the team in rushing and receiving, he's one of those guys that could do something like that. So I really like Christian McCaffrey this year, both in standard, and I really like him in PPR, obviously, because I do like I was saying, I think he's going to get about 100 yards receiving, or 100 receptions, I'm sorry. Next for me is going to be Devontae Freeman, and honestly, I like Devontae Freeman. His ability to get to the outside and in and out of cuts, the way he runs. By most expert standards, I'm pretty low on him. I think that has a little bit more to do with how high I am on Christian McCaffrey, Mixon, and Howard. The way he runs is kind of like an injury waiting to happen. And last year we kind of saw that with the concussions. And concussions for me, when it comes to basically all the injuries, is one that really I want to stay away from, especially with a little guy, because Devontae Freeman for a running back is a little guy, and the way he runs like he's a big guy, and he takes a lot of hard contact, and he's on a team with Tevin Coleman, and I've already talked about this. I just don't like Sarkisian in general. I think he's a bad offensive coordinator. While I still have him ranked high, and that has to do more with what I believe he is talent-wise and how good I think that Atlanta could be. He's still going to get those opportunities. I think his upside is capped because of Tevin Coleman. Outside of an injury to Tevin Coleman, I really don't see him having the same kind of ceiling as some of the guys I talked about ahead of him. Jerick McKinnon is number 5 on this list, and honestly, this is a guy I've been talking about since he came into the league. I've always liked Jerick McKinnon's talent. I think he's been grossly underused for the Minnesota Vikings. I figured he was going to get a big paycheck coming out, not the kind of paycheck that he got with San Francisco 49ers, but I thought he was going to be used as a feature back for some team this year, and it looks like it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers. I do like their system for him as far as catching the ball out of the backfield. Why I'm a little low on Jerick McKinnon is because I actually kind of see a lot of like Lamar Miller, the whole Lamar Miller situation when he left the Dolphins and he went to the Texans as a feature back and everybody's thinking he's going to blow up. I'm kind of checking myself a little bit because of the history that I've had when I really love Lamar Miller coming out of Miami going into Houston. The one thing that I kind of look at with Jerick McKinnon is once Garoppolo took over, he didn't really throw it to the running back. Now, the San Francisco 49ers were a team that threw the ball a lot to the running back, and if you follow Shanahan's career, he is a guy that typically is going to get the ball to the running back. That's just part of his scheme. Once Garoppolo came into town, he was more getting the ball downfield. He was getting the ball to receivers and tight ends and those kind of things. While I'm not saying that Jerick McKinnon's not going to get the ball a lot out of the backfield, that is his talent. That is what he does. He does that at a much better level than Carlos Hyde does. So you can obviously expect him to catch the ball out of the backfield. And San Francisco has a history of doing that with Kyle Shanahan as the head coach. It's just the fact that Garoppolo didn't do it, so I'm kind of checking myself on how much. I don't think he's going to have as many catches as Christian McCaffrey, for example. So if you're comparing him to Christian McCaffrey, which one of those guys to go first? And there's a lot of debate there. I'm going with Christian McCaffrey because I saw it last year. I saw what Christian McCaffrey was in that offense, and I believe that he's just going to be more involved in the passing game this year after they realize just how big of a passing mismatch Christian McCaffrey was. So where Jerick McKinnon has that same kind of talent, I'm just not 100% sure he's going to be used in that way. Now, if you believe that Jerick McKinnon is going to be used in that way, this could be a guy that is going to be one of those elite. Again, if he can get close to what I think Christian McCaffrey is going to do, where he's getting 100 catches a year, I don't believe that's what Jerick McKinnon is going to do. I think he's going to be high in the league as far as catches go. I just don't think he's going to be in that elite status where he's up in the 80s. I think he could be somewhere like in 65, just about 80 probably being his max, and then his rushing ability is going to be there. I do think he's going to share the ball with Britta. I mean, he's in for a good season because the San Francisco 49ers are going to be a pretty good offense. Next on my list is Jay Ajayi, and I think that I'm a little bit higher than most people on Jay Ajayi, and I think the reason for that is everybody seems to think that the Philadelphia Eagles are really committed to this running back by committee thing. And that might be the case, but I think a lot of that stems from last year that he just really didn't have a feature back that was capable of taking over. They had Blunt, and we all know what Blunt is. He plays in running back by committees. He's not a pass catcher out of the backfield. He doesn't have that breakaway speed. He's more of a goal line guy. And they had Darren Sproles early in the year, or at least that was their plan, who was going to be that change of pace back, and that's all Darren Sproles has ever been in his career. They traded for Jay Ajayi at the trade deadline. Had Jay Ajayi been there through training camp and understood the playbook and felt comfortable in the offense, I believe that he would have been the feature back last year. And I think going into this season, he's going to be the feature back because he's the most talented running back on the field. And they traded for him because they believed in how talented he was in the field. And the stats show just how much better he was than everybody else last year. Blunt is gone, so there's no way Blunt takes the running back role. Yes, I think that Darren Sproles and Clement get on the field and change a pace a little bit, but for the most part, this is going to be, I believe, he's going to be the feature back there in Philadelphia. And I don't think a lot of people believe that. Now, if they did, I believe Jay Ajayi would be ranked higher. And me personally, I'm struggling with where to put him because he keeps falling. So I'm going to get him in a lot of leagues based on the fact that that's what people are thinking that Jay Ajayi is this year, which is a running back by committee running back. And I personally believe that he's a feature back on one of the best offenses in the NFL. So I'm going to end up with a lot of Jay Ajayi. I actually might move him up higher on the list. I like everybody on this list from Devontae Freeman, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, Howard. But Jay Ajayi is definitely in this tier, and I wouldn't say anything bad if you took Jay Ajayi over even Jordan Howard on this list, because I do believe that if he is the feature back on this roster, he could be in that top tier. Last year he was being drafted like that on the Miami Dolphins team, which was not even as talented as this Philadelphia team. Obviously, Philadelphia just won the Super Bowl, so I think there's going to be a lot of touchdown opportunities, and I think Jay Ajayi is a huge buy low this year. And I'm going to end up with him on a lot of my rosters. Derrick Henry is the next guy on my list, and I really wanted to rank Derrick Henry higher because I think he's very similar, in a very similar situation to Jordan Howard. Similar, like I said, with Jordan Howard, I think the new coaching staff is going to be a benefit for Derrick Henry. I think the fact that the offense is going to be better is going to allow Derrick Henry to have more touchdown opportunities. DeMarco Murray's gone, so Derrick Henry is going to be basically the featured goal line back, similar to what I expect out of Jordan Howard. The difference is they have two different running styles, and I know you look at them, and unless you watch them on tape and really study running backs, you're not going to realize just how different they really are. Jordan Howard works and operates inside the chaos, right up the middle, where that's where he's able to use his power, create extra yards. Believe it or not, Derrick Henry is not good there. He starts slow. His acceleration is not very strong. His ability to get up into the line of scrimmage isn't elite. But his ability to, once he gets going, so with this outside zone running scheme where you're trying to get to the outside and then you take one cut, go upfield, that's where Derrick Henry can operate at, because if he can get to the outside, he's so big that first of all, he's hard to bring down just in general, but if he's already moving and he can put his arm out there and you're coming at him from an angle and he can kind of create space like that going full speed, he's a very hard, this is where he could excel in this offense. So I'm really excited to see him there. Just like Jordan Howard, he's got Tariq Cohen. He's got Dion Lewis there in Tennessee. I do think Dion Lewis is going to be more involved than Tariq Cohen. And I believe they'll both be involved, but I do think Dion Lewis is a little bit better running back than Tariq Cohen. When I watched the first preseason game, and I don't really take a lot out of preseason, the biggest thing I take out of preseason is how often are they using their backs. And the Tennessee Titans were kind of rotating Dion Lewis, Derrick Henry. I don't think that's going to be the case with Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard is the running back, and then Dion Lewis is the change of pace back. In Tennessee, I can see that being kind of a rotation. But I do think Derrick Henry is going to be the goal line guy, and I believe that he's going to excel in this offense, and he has the ability to do something special, especially depending on how many carries he gets. What I'm worried about is he's going to be in that kind of same situation he was in with DeMarco Murray, where he's knocking in the carries that allows him to be that at least fantasy option. Next on my list is Marlon Mack, and I think a lot of people are going to look at this list and go, okay, he lost all credibility, he's got Marlon Mack, but what I don't think that people understand is just how good that offense could be this year. I mean, it was terrible last year. And Frank Gore was in the way of Marlon Mack getting on the field, plus he had a shoulder injury basically the entire season. So let's just take for a second what your thoughts are on just Marlon Mack and his talent, and let's look at the Indianapolis Colts. They got Andrew Luck back, which is a vast improvement. They got an elite quarterback back under center. They drafted the best offensive lineman in the draft. Their offensive line is going to be good this year. It's going to be a good offensive line. You're going to have a good offensive line that can really create running room with a great quarterback and an elite passing game. Like, whoever the starter there is going to be is going to get rushing yards. The Colts are going to be able to run the ball this year. I think that Marlon Mack is the guy. Now, I know they've been talking about this running back by committee thing, but I honestly think that Marlon Mack is going to he's the veteran. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run the ball up the middle. He can get to the edge. He's really the only guy they have that can do it all. He's the do-it-all running back. And, again, what I was just talking about with preseason, there was no rotation. It was Marlon Mack's job. He got injured. He got taken out. But he was basically with the first-team offense. I really like Marlon Mack this year. I am not drafting him here. So let me just say that, because nobody's drafting him here. I play the ADP. So, I would like to get as many good players as I can. If I can wait around knowing that I can get Marlon Mack, if I'm drafting against 10 me's, I want Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack, I believe, is better than Alex Collins, just in talent-wise. And I think that with the LaShawn McCoy thing, which we'll get to here in a second, I'd rather take Marlon Mack, honestly. There's other guys on this list that maybe aren't there. You got Mark Ingram. Well, honestly, Mark Ingram is suspended, so give me Marlon Mack, first of all, because suspensions, I just can't deal with that in fantasy football because the season's shorter. It's not like the real NFL season where as long as we make the playoffs, it is true. And if you make the playoffs and you have Mark Ingram, maybe Mark Ingram is a really good running back, but I don't think that there's that much of a difference between Mark Ingram and Marlon Mack in this scenario because Mark Ingram is sharing the load with Kamara, who everybody thinks is going to be good. So again, give me Marlon Mack in that scenario. And then the next guy I probably have in that same range is probably Kenyon Drake, but Frank Gore has already been named the co-starter, and I get it. Everybody thinks Kenyon Drake's going to be the guy, but they brought Frank Gore in for a reason. They are splitting the work there for sure. And I believe that this offense, this Colts offense, is going to be better than the Dolphins offense. So I can't think of anybody that I want to put over Marlon Mack at this point. Alex Collins, I do like. I just don't like his talent. And I think Alex Collins is the hardest person for me to rank. And the reason I say that is because Alex Collins is on a team. First of all, Alex Collins is not that talented. He's on a team that runs the ball a lot. They want to run the ball. That offense is going to be better. So Alex Collins is the one guy that I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between Marlon Mack, Alex Collins, is because despite it's hard. I don't want to draft a guy who I don't actually think is the most talented guy on his own roster. I think Kenneth Dixon is the most talented guy on that as far as running backs go. Honestly, he's just an average running back. He can't get to the edge. He runs hard, and I like the guy. I have nothing against Alex Collins. He's just, if you watch him on film, he misses opportunities that other running backs can take advantage of. With Alex Collins, I kind of think that eventually somebody can step up, whether it's Jarvis Allen, but I really think Kenneth Dixon at some point, to me, is just, at some point you're going to watch Kenneth Dixon, maybe Jarvis Allen goes down for 2 games, and then Kenneth Dixon shows up and he just goes off. That the fear of that makes me want nothing to do with Alex Collins, although I do have him ranked higher because I believe that the Ravens want to run the football. On the other end, I'd rather have Marlon Mack, who I believe is going to be the starter. I believe is the most talented running back on the roster, and I believe is on a better offense overall. I might not draft Marlon Mack at that spot, and I'm telling you guys, don't do it. If you know you can get him in the next round, go ahead and wait, but know that he's the next best player on that list fantasy-wise. And then lastly, I got LaShawn McCoy, and LaShawn McCoy would be higher on this list. There's no question. He would be higher on this list if it wasn't for the suspension thing. The problem is all these players I think are very good players and can be very productive fantasy players. The risk of LaShawn McCoy getting suspended, no thank you. I'm not speaking to whether he did it, whether he didn't do it, whether obviously it was awful what he did. If there was a douchebag rating in Madden and LaShawn McCoy was in there and he did all these things, it would be at a 99. That's awful, the things that he was accused of doing. But what I'm saying is, I don't think that he goes the whole season without getting suspended. Some sort of suspension is going to come down. Something's going to happen. Maybe it's next year. Maybe he can delay it a year. But we saw what happened with Ezekiel Elliott. Nothing was really proven. Because that's what basically people are going to go to, and they're going to be like, well, you can't really prove anything. The law enforcement isn't saying that anything's going on. They don't believe that he did anything, or they can't prove it, so they can't do anything about it. But in the NFL, it's completely different. We saw with Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott was never accused officially, outside of the NFL of any, or never officially prosecuted of anything, because there was no real proof. There was actually proof the other way, that the girl had actually said things about that she would do something like this to Zeke. Now the thing that LaShawn McCoy has done was he's already gone to the NFL and said that expect for something like this to happen eventually with this particular woman. So maybe he can bail himself out, but for me, it's not worth the risk. At this point, now we're talking after Alex Collins gone, after Marlon Mack's gone. I put him here because right now he's not suspended. But honestly, on draft day, I might still stay away from him. It's just too risky for me. I'd rather go a guy like Kenyon Drake, Mark Ingram, depending on whether I believe I'm a lock for the playoffs or not. And you would know that based on your particular league. That's it for today's podcast. Next week, we'll be talking about over and undervalued players. Be sure to like and subscribe to our video. Till next time, see ya!